All right. I am back in the flesh with my good friend Tony Lowe, vintage guitar, vintage gear, vintage amplifier expert. Today we're going to be talking about sleeper pedals. Now, I've done this a little bit, but Tony actually, I would say, in many ways, has more breadth and depth in terms of his knowledge of sleeper pieces of gear. So today we're going to go through some of Tony's picks. I might throw in a few that I've thrown in before, maybe a few that I forgot about. And we're really here to showcase the pedals that people don't know about, that they should know about. And, maybe at the very least we'll stimulate the economy or Reverb in so doing. So welcome, Tony.
Hey, dude, it's really good to see you, man.
Yeah, as I told you before we started, it's like 95 here in Oakland, which is like a historic high. It doesn't usually get this hot, so I have to like turn off all the fans and everything like that. So hopefully I don't melt away in doing this.
Don't melt.
All right. So let's for people that don't know, who have never heard you before, you've of course been on the podcast many times. But tell us about your background as a guitar player, and you've worked at one of the a vintage guitar shop that had some really hip stuff. You've owned a lot of vintage guitars, vintage amps. What
Yeah.
what sort of your qualifications? What give us your
Yeah.
give us your digital business card.
Okay. I didn't know we were doing that. I'll do my best.
No, this is good.
So
It's good. It's not intimidating. Don't be intimidated.
I'm good. I mean, I was just kind of like a, pretty standard. I've always, just been a standard dude. I never made it famous or anything, just playing guitar. I had a couple really cool bands. I think in the 90s there was a band called Junior Electric, which was kind of a weirdo rock band. We opened for Hum and Sloan and a bunch of bands like that. Sloan is a big, I don't know if you guys have them out there. It's like a big Canadian, really hip Canadian band up here. I'm in Ohio right now. This is where I grew up. So then my claim to fame is I've played in a band with two consecutive pretty famous punk rock drummers. So my band Fast Piece of Furniture was my rock band that I write the songs for and such. And the first lineup had Jeff Nelson, who played drums in the hardcore band Minor Threat and owns half of Discord Records, played on that record. And we got to put our record out as a split release with Discord. Not a full release because you have to be from Washington, D.C. to come out on Discord. So then we did another one. I relocated to the Bay Area where I met you, Mason, and was in a band with another punk rock drummer, Todd Swalla. And it was still a Fast Piece of Furniture. Now, in terms of the gear, when I was probably 18 or 19, I had a major guitar fetish, and I was trying to own vintage guitars, and I would, drive around to stores and just kind of look at them like they were candy and just love Fender. I was deep into all the old Fender stuff. There was back then, before the vintage guitar craze grew to what it is now, you could go in these really dingy little gnarly cobwebby shops and there would just be custom color strats and old tweed amps and everything just piled up in these small spaces. So I started working for a guitar dealer who worked in such a space. And if you walked in there now, you would say, oh, wow, this is a crazy pawn shop full of vintage gear from, pillar to post. Just, you could dig through piles of vintage guitars. Like, what is this? Is this a 1960 Telly neck? What is this thing? Just parts and amplifiers. And I literally had to clean out this giant closet full of pedals over there that were just stacked like an old lady's shoes, old Univibes and Foxtones and just anything you can possibly imagine. So I started working for this guy at this little local shop. And through that, he was making his money by getting in a van with a bunch of cars or a bunch of guitars and going to guitar shows and peddling. And so I started working for him, you know, loading the van or driving or working and selling. And then we started doing some really big deals with, like, the Japanese buyers were the big, you know, when everything was going over to Japan, all the cool vintage stuff. So I got to play everything. I got to play all the old stuff and a couple great 59 bursts. I've owned Strats through the 60s. I've never owned a real 50s Strat, but I certainly played a bunch. So that's pretty much really the story. I've just played everything.
Yeah, you have, and even when I've, you know, bought some vintage guitars in the past, you're usually one of the folks that I consult when, you know, I'm trying to get a hold on what's vintage correct versus what's a replacement, because sometimes even through no fault of their own, the sellers are not experts in vintage gear, and having you know, having you as a resource that's gone through so many of those pieces and seen so many, you're able to make some distinctions on years and you know, aesthetic traits that maybe only an expert would really know about. So I'm always appreciative for that resource. But today we're going to be utilizing your resources to go through sleeper effects. And I noticed that some of our international listeners are unfamiliar with this term of sleeper. How would you, what would the Tony Lowe definition of that be?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the expert moniker, but I'm not claiming that. That's you. I'm just a guy who loves this stuff, you know. But yeah, the sleeper thing, when prices of effects, old vintage effects, started to climb, a lot of people when they first started to do that, people were buying stuff just to collect it. And so if something was really popular, everybody knew about it. Or if something was in use, everybody would rush and buy it, and that would be really valuable. But there could be something else that people don't know about that's really just as good, and yet it's a sleeper because no one's jumping on it. The prices aren't climbing. It's just kind of an unknown gem that everybody should be hip to.
Yeah, I agree with that definition, and you know, certainly, you know, I just think about it, yeah, something that's sort of under the radar that sounds great, as good as any of the popular devices of the day, and maybe don't get the respect that they deserve compared to their maybe equivalent counterparts, should I say.
Yeah, and to give credibility to the idea, it's now in 2020, we have these codified ideas of what constitutes a legitimate piece of gear, or what are the classics. And it's just kind of this generalized pantheon of classics. The thing is, I remember when nobody was paying big money for a Stratocaster if it was one of the dogs with a rosewood neck.
So it was a dog if it had a rosewood neck was the consideration?
Yeah, people were buying maple neck Strats. Now, don't hear me wrong. I'm not saying that by the time I was into all this, we were well into the 90s. It's not that, I mean, they were obviously worth thousands of dollars, a rosewood neck Strat, you know, a rosewood fretboard. But the initial craze, the Clapton craze, it was for the maple necks, and the rosewood board Strats didn't have the same kind of a reputation among the initial collector craze. So that kind of built later. I mean, Stevie Ray had his, but it was kind of like cool that he had the beater one that was just any old way. And of course, you know, all the myths fall apart because the idea of the rosewood Strat being dark and the maple being bright, I mean, these aren't really that true.
Yeah.
But my point is that we develop these ideas about what it means to play a certain guitar, what guitar is the one, or what effect is the really hip one. And it just kind of builds on itself like a snowball.
Yeah.
Oh, I need the one that everyone has. But there's no reason for it, other than that's the one we got used to buying and hearing, and the one we decided is the one.
Yeah, and I think that this happens a lot in the boutique pedal realm. I mean, it's somebody who's making a living selling pedals, you know, one thing that that I always find very interesting, or that I admire in other companies, are the ones that can transcend, um, you know, multiple generations or multiple decades and still have relevance. You know, so an example of a boutique company that's done that is Exotic. You know, they've been relevant now. This is kind of on, you know, they were relevant when I was finishing high school, because they came out with the RC, the BB, the AC preamp.
You're so great.
And they've continued to figure out a way to be relevant and make products that people want, you know. And so that's an example of a company that I could see really, you know, like it's easy to make one good pedal once, you know. You know, I mean, it's not easy, but it's a way harder to do that and be able to still be making a living 10 years later. So I especially admire companies that I see that do that. With that said, I think that in our industry, there is a tremendous amount of, you know, sort of my analogy of the boy who cried wolf, the boy who cried tone. And,
Yeah.
you know, and there's a lot of that, and it creates these flocks of dogmatic followers to a specific brand, and they kind of like suck them dry, and they're never able to repeat that success again. And
Yeah.
and at the same time, there's companies that come out with something that goes pretty unnoticed, and then it's only until years later that we really admire those products, you know. So a Noble's Overdrive is something like that. It was really not considered anything cool or special. It was sort of this budget brand that made a tube screamer equivalent that was a little bit different, that people just happen to that now love in hindsight. Or the Distortion from Ibanez, you know, now it's like a $500 pedal, but at the time it was just this really cheap sort of, you know, distortion pedal that was, you know, but from all intents and purposes considered a really a step down from, you know, the TS9 style era pedals. You know, when you went to the TS10, by most people's definition at that time, it was a step down in quality. It had a plastic foot switch and all this stuff. So I think today what we want to do is really focus in on those ones that people have not paid attention to, that maybe there was a better flavor of the week. The boy who cried tone put everybody on the scent of whatever boutique pedal XYZ, and we're going to give them their due. We're going to give them their day in court today.
All right, let's do it.
All right. So what I'm going to do, unless you have, I'm happy to follow any format, but you sent us a list of kind of your picks in advance. I don't know how well you remember those picks, or whether you want me to introduce them. I'll bring them up on Reverb, let's say, and then you can talk about why you like this one.
Yeah, I don't remember at all, and I might even have some other ones. I'm a very
luckily Reverb is an easy resource for us to reference. So let's go there right now. We're going to start with fuzzes. Do you remember the first fuzz that you talked about?
Tell me.
This one right here.
Let's see. Oh, is that the Angry Fuzz?
This is the Angry Fuzz from Visual Sound, which is now known as True Tone. So tell us about the Angry Fuzz. It looks like they're all around $100.
Yeah, the worst graphics ever.
Yeah.
There's like a little angry guy on fire or something.
Yeah. He doesn't really look very fuzzy. He just. So
yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to describe the sound of it. It just is this would be something where, for somebody that just wants a weird fuzzy kind of sound that nobody else uses, and I forget what they call the drive knob. It's some kind of, it either just says angry or something. I can't remember.
Let's see.
But
pull it up here.
Yeah.
Anger level.
Okay.
So if you and volume level.
So this effect does a weird thing where when you get that anger level up high enough, I don't know if it's by design, if it kicks in some extra little diode or what, but there comes a point where you get this weird low end rumbling craziness. So it's a one-trick pony that I don't have words for other than to say it's not a blue box. It's not, people don't even know what that is anymore. It's not there's not an octave divider.
Yeah.
but it's almost like it's like a deep harmonic thing that goes on.
Okay. Yeah, so that was your first pick for Fuzz. Now I think now it's, for me, one that I think it now kind of found out, but it's the Boss. I think it's the is it the FZ5? Maybe this is it.
FZ2 or 3, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the 2, because let's look at the FC2. Yeah, the Hyper.
Yeah.
This one is actually, now they're definitely been figured out. Look at that, $550 for this.
Yeah.
I remember the reason that a lot of guys like these, like when I was first getting into doing pedal boards, is that they're pretty impervious to buffers.
Yep.
So you could use these in a rack, or you could use these on a switching board, because in the early switchers, a lot of them didn't even have ways that you could bypass the buffer. So I remember doing these tricks where you would build like basically an unbuffer, so that you could convert it back to like a high impedance signal to go into your fuzz, so that you could use it in a switcher, but it wouldn't wreck it. But it was still a compromise. But these, for whatever reason, were pretty impervious. But I don't know that we can call this a sleeper anymore based on these prices. This is I think it was maybe $120 when it was new.
Right.
So that's one of mine. So have you ever played that Boss one?
Sure. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it? Was it underwhelming for you?
No, it's good. But fuzzes you can never count a fuzz in or out.
Yeah.
If it's a good fuzz, which means it's simple enough to be the raw animal that I would fall in love with, then even the same brand, you're going to try a bunch of them. So ones that are consistently made like that, you're going to be able to take it, plug into it, and get a reasonable fuzz, and that's good enough.
Right. Now, the other one that you had mentioned to me, I'm going to share here again, is the Dunlop Fuzz Faces. You said that you're a fan of any Dunlop fuzz that is a fuzz face, presumably even, ones like this that you can get at Sweetwater or Music Toys here, just this plain old red Dunlop manufacturing fuzz face.
Yeah, with a caveat, which is I haven't tried them lately. What I recommend if you're looking for a sleeper fuzz face is you find a store that has a whole bunch of them, like used ones.
Yeah.
And try a bunch. And are you able to get me back on the screen?
Yeah.
So can you see this?
I can.
This is my Dunlop fuzz face from the 90s.
Okay.
And it is not, to the best of my knowledge, one of the rare Crest Audio ones.
Okay.
Because Crest Audio was the first maker of the reissue fuzz faces.
Yeah.
And those go for big money.
That
this
was
one,
Dave Fox, correct?
Sorry?
Dave Fox was the guy who was involved with Crest Audio, I believe.
That's right. Dave Fox.
Who still makes pedals, by the way.
Fox rocks. Excellent pedals.
Yeah, really good pedals. Way underrated pedals. Yeah, keep going.
Fact. Yeah, you're speaking truth. This one's just your regular old lame-o Jim Dunlop fuzz face. But for some reason, because I don't own everything anymore. I don't own that much anymore. But I've kept things that work. And this works. That fuzz, all the expensive fuzzes I ever had, or boutique ones or whatever, this is the one that's been on almost every recording in one way or another that I've ever done.
Yeah.
So it just kind of hangs with me.
Yeah.
It's an excellent fuzz. And it's got germanium transistors in it.
Oh, it does. Do you know what it has in your particular one?
Well, it says on them NKT 275, but they were labeling things for marketing purposes by the mid 90s like that. So I don't think they're like new markets or anything.
Yeah. So here's what we were talking about is the Fox Rocks, And these are actually a great pick if you want a fuzz face. This like hot silicone one is really fantastic. I think actually, and it looks like you might be, oh, you're buying it from Music Toast. I thought maybe you might be buying it directly from Dave. But these are great silicone fuzz faces. I mean, they're pretty reasonable. Here's a used one for $150. You can get this hybrid fuzz right here. These are fantastic. Yeah, so this one has silicon and germanium transistors, $150. It's like unbeatable. And these are so well built, you know, heavy duty, you know, folded metal enclosures. Way underrated. I mean, I remember he was like the talk of the town when the Captain Coconut came out, which was like had his vibe unit and the fuzz and the octave and all that stuff. It was like Hendrix in a box, and it was just had all three. I think it was three effects in it.
Yeah.
Henry Kaiser actually has a bunch of them, and he loaned me some, and they sound fantastic. And I remember on the gear page when I was like, you know, maybe end of high school, just starting college, everybody was all over that. Like if you could afford, you know, whatever it was, $800, you had one of those.
Yeah. I actually think if someone's looking to get into the fuzz face thing, there's so many great options. And I think it's really cool that Dunlop has all those signature series ones, because they've got George Tripp's working over there, I think. And he's doing a lot of, they're very predictable. So if you want a very low gain, if you're playing a Strat and you want a low gain fuzz face, you would go to like a Joe Bonamassa one that's more tweaked for a humbucker. Or, you know, there's the two different Jimi Hendrix fuzzes, and I love both of those. That series is fantastic. The blue Jimi Hendrix and the Band of Gypsies one are different, but you could find one you like. Really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, let's move on. I think those are the two fuzzes that you had mentioned. Certainly there's more. But you know, we're gonna go on to some of the other Tony's handpicked. We're gonna go to Overdrive. Now
Okay.
this one, I have to admit, it definitely surprised me.
Yeah. Okay. What you got?
All right, check this out. Here we are. Now you're gonna have to explain to me exactly which one it is, because there looks like there's a few different versions.
Okay.
Here we go.
I don't
Overdrive.
remember what I said.
You said the Zakk Wylde Overdrive.
Oh, you bet I did.
Now,
yeah.
there's a couple of different versions here. Which one are you speaking of when you mean the Zakk Wylde Overdrive?
The only one I have experience with is the very first version. It's like an MXR.
Well, these are all MXR, but you know, when we looking at the screen here, do you recognize the one that is the one that you?
Well,
use?
it's hard to tell, frankly, because my screen is upside down. But
so there's one that's called the Berserker.
No, not that one.
And then there's there's one that's a little bit more simple looking. Like
you want the one? Yeah, that's the one right there.
The one. This is the one to get. Now, how would you sort of recapitulate the basics of the sound of this?
Very simple. That pedal is just a ruggedly built Boss SD1.
Wow. Okay.
So if the reason I picked it was the SD1 itself, I find to be super underrated. This pedal, what you would get out of this is if you have a Marshall amp and you're a player who likes a tube screamer,
right,
but you've never really been able to get it to work with your Marshall. If you're one of those players that plays like a JCM 800 type of tone, that if you're going for that 80s rock thing and the amp is already dirty and you want to step on something to go and play a solo that's going to boost the gain and volume a bit, that pedal will do it and not ruin the sound of your Marshall the way a tube screamer will.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think one thing that the SD1, you know, I mean, it is similar to a tube screamer.
Mm-hmm.
but my understanding of the circuit is that it instead of having symmetrical clipping, I think it has asymmetrical clipping. And so it does a little something different, which may make it advantageous for certain players that are playing more aggressive stuff like the Zakk Wylde, type thing. But I mean, even in Marshalls, do you find these sound equally good into, say, like cranked Fender Tweeds and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think that, well, I've never played one into a Tweed necessarily, but it's going to do better than the Tube Screamer will if you've got hair on your amp.
Okay.
And I could have easily just said, get a Boss, what am I trying to say, SD1 or whatever.
Right.
I could easily just say that. However, I do believe that from what I'm observing, a lot of players really want something that's a little bit smaller. It's a little shorter, it's a little narrower, it's got the hard switch on it. And I don't know, but I suspect that pedalboard folks who are just burying their pedals in a switching system, they're going to prefer this thing.
Now let's go to this other one here that you also mentioned, which is the Ibanez TK999, and you made an explicit distinction to say not the US version. Do you recognize which one is the US versus non-US version?
Well, those all look like they're the ones that are more diamond shaped.
Yeah.
And what you want is, it should be gold. It should be gold looking.
It's not. It's this guy.
Yeah, that one. And there's some that say TK999 US, and some say just TK999.
Now, I did notice that there was one on Eric Johnson's board recently.
Is that right? Is he scooping my pedal?
I mean, he may be. Let's see. This one's $110.
That is a ridiculous steal.
I'm even tempted. This one says "Design in the USA." I don't know if that's problematic based on your.
No, as long as where it says TK999, it does not say US at the end of the number.
Yeah. Well, here's one right here. The Guitar Room, $110, free shipping.
Somebody get it.
Yeah, somebody get it.
So
it's got a 12-7 in it, I presume.
Yeah, and that's the reason that you want the one that is not the US one. The United States version had regulations that required them to put the tube that's inside there in this enclosure.
Right.
So you don't, if you open it up, you can't really play around with it much. It takes a lot of work. The Japanese one, you can switch out tubes and substitute different gain tubes, like a 12A U7 or a 12A T7, new old stock tubes, and they all will have a different response. So you're still getting the same level of distortion. You get an extremely, all the way from crystal clean to full up revolting dirt.
Yeah.
But you're changing the feel of it as you swap out for different tubes. So you can get a little more sag, a little more sponginess.
Okay, so maybe this is a compressor version.
Yeah, I've never tried that. I've never tried the compressor.
Here's another one, a little more expensive here, $243. Another compressor. All right. Here's another one, $175. Oh yeah, how about that? Yeah, I'll have to try it. So how would you describe this sonically compared to, I don't know, what the standards that people know?
I'm afraid to say it because we're going to drive up the prices. Now we got Eric Johnson in on it and everything. But they are a sonic, very close cousin to the original Chandler tube driver. Yes.
Well, maybe I'll end up buying one of these just to check it out.
You know who else used one recently was Owen Barry. He was using one.
Oh man, Owen, yeah, he's got a fetish for tube pedals. Although in most cases, as I've said repeatedly, very often there's very few pedals I've seen where they get 250 volts on a 12AX7 where it could really resemble what it does in a tube amplifier. So there, there are some workarounds to that, but generally I don't find it necessarily to be advantageous to the point where you only need to use tubes versus doing it, all solid state.
Yeah, you're like the guy that rides the roller coaster and say, well, I'm an engineer, and if they had bolted this thing on a little differently, we'd all be safer. Yeah, I don't know, man. I just jammed the guitar through the sucker.
Yeah, and I think that perhaps you're more pragmatic for doing so than I am. All right, let's move on to another one that you have here. This one I am familiar with from the hometown heroes of Tony Lowe.
Oh, is this my fave? Did I put it on there? I have it sitting here too. Oh no, that. Oh, I see that one.
Isn't Ram
the Drivetrain?
Detroit?
What's that?
Are they from Detroit or are they from Toledo?
Man, they're from Toledo, Ohio, baby.
So here they are, the Drivetrain. So tell us about the Drivetrain, $65.
Dude, that is
do you notice
preposterous.
Between the Drivetrain and Drivetrain 2?
They said because when I worked for the guitar guy, we were dealing these in their most early days. When they were brand new, we were dealing Reverence, and they said that they tweaked some thing that was different. They had like some instability in the circuit. But Mason, Joe Naylor, he's one of these, and Dennis Kager, I think, was the guy working with him. I don't know who did the pedal.
It said on the back of it, Bob Wylde, who's with Visual Sound.
That's right, he did.
Yeah. So right here, check this out. It says Joe Naylor of Naylor Amps, and then Bob Wylde of Visual Sound, which is now True Tone.
Yeah. So they said that there were some tweaks made that would stabilize it or something, but they're engineers, dude. They're thinking about it like you, man. To me, it always just sounded like a tube screamer with separate bass and treble, so it was just much more usable. Yeah. And the circuit is dead on. Well, I'm not going to say circuit because you'll get in there and open it up and look and tell me I'm wrong, but the sound of it was dead on balls. Great tube screamer.
Yeah, I mean, here's a nice one that's it's $90, Columbus, Indiana.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, all the good picks today. So this isn't the one that you have handy in your hand.
No, I've got my the secret weapon. the nameless overdrive.
Yeah, here let's get let's get there. Let me go back to my screen share. And let's even see, there might not even be one on Reverb right now.
They're actually pretty hard to find.
All right, let's screen share this. And,
yeah, you got one?
I actually don't. So when we typed in LocoBox, which is the one that both you and I actually love.
Yeah.
It was nowhere to be found. It kind of looks like this analog delay here, in fact, but it's pink. Well, got two knobs.
I've got mine right here if you want to see it.
Yeah, let's look at yours, and also let me just see if I can bring out a LocoBox. It was an overdrive.
Yeah, I'll tell you some secrets about it too, because there's many different names for this pedal.
Let's see.
Sometimes it's a Q-Tech brand. Sometimes it's LocoBox. Sometimes it's Studio Series. Sometimes there we go. What's that? That's the one. That's it. That is it. That is a keeper, ladies and gentlemen.
And I can attest to it. It basically was like one of the best sounding tube screamers that you'll ever use. And I think you had brought it to me because it was working only off a battery, but not off DC or something like that.
Yeah. And
And
it has this really great where you plug the power supply into it. It says, caution, the center pin of this jack is, quote, and all capital letters, earth, end quote. The center pin of this jack is earth. So here it is.
yeah, yeah,
And they are fan freaking tastic.
they
It's
are.
spongy, it's raw, and it has no tone control.
Yeah,
And I think that might be a big part of it. Is I don't know what it is. If it kind of makes me think of like in my opinion, the better kind of Boss OD1 kind of a thing. But if you opened it up, well, you did open it up, I think. But what I can tell you
just
is,
fix it.
yeah, this one has the chip that it's the old Texas Instruments chip.
The
The
four.
It's not a JRC. It's like no, wait, I can't remember, but I know it has a picture of Texas on it.
Yeah, most of the TI chips have that.
Yeah, but it sounds just so good.
Yeah,
And so I know maybe the chip has nothing to do with it. It's probably more diodes, but it sounds fantastic.
I can agree that it sounds fantastic. Let's go to one of your other picks here. It used to actually be popular closer to the time that I was maybe early college. Let me share this with us.
Yeah. What did I do? This is fun because I have no recollection of what I told you to.
Yeah, well, I guess that was over a week ago that we kind of put together this list. This is the what's it? How are you pronouncing this?
Yeah, I just don't. I just call it the soul pressure.
HAO.
Yeah, it's just a good basic tweed-like overdrive.
Yeah, supposed to sound like a tweed bassman, huh? And do you feel like it delivers on that promise?
Well, I usually don't, but I think, we're always kind of playing a duet with our ideas about what a thing is.
Right.
And if you're a person, I mean, I've been into old amps and guitars forever, and I've only ever played through one functional 410 bassman to really get the goods out of it.
Yeah.
And so they're nothing like the reissues. And I'm not going to pretend I know that, this pedal plugged into your amp is going to sound like what the bassman sounded like when you really crank. But it does do a good job of being an overdrive pedal that is in the ballpark in terms of like range of gain, and that it's kind of firm but kind of saggy sort of response. So it checks all the boxes for your guy who wants a bassman.
Yeah, and this definitely, look at this guy. Looks like he took care of it. It's got all the original stuff. $150. Very cool.
And a favorite of Bay Area tone person, Steve Kimmock, also.
Oh, Steve Kimmock likes these, huh?
Yeah, I heard that. I heard he really thinks they're cool. But
it's funny. I just always remember seeing him whenever I would see him on a Bay Area type gig. He would like plug in a pedal for like one song.
Yeah, in the middle of a song, he plugs in a tone bender and then unplugs it.
Yeah. All right, so now we're gonna graduate to boosts, and this one I don't know if I completely say it's a sleeper. Although I think these days, again, because we talked about the boy who cried tone. Are you seeing these?
Is that the ZVEX?
This is the ZVEX, super hard on.
Yeah. I just don't hear people talking about them.
Yeah, I don't feel like they're talking about it much either. Let's see, there's one for $110. And this was a really, I remember kind of vaguely that the input impedance was really high. And so kind of did the pickups. And then they had this crackle okay thing because I think there was DC on the pot. So it would make some noise as you would move it, that would sound kind of like a dirty pot. But it really, and then it had this split, it had a paralleled output. And I thought it was cool because it definitely sounded, like real big and fat, and it did some tone, some coloration, but I thought it sounded really good, especially through like lower wattage amps if you kind of wanted to throw them into overdrive. What was your take on it?
Yeah, this is the one pedal. I always think when people say, "Oh, that's my always on pedal," I'm like, "That's your you bought the wrong amp pedal," but 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 this one is this would be a great always on pedal if you wanted to just, how the dynamics change with any amplifier dependent on how loud the guitar output is.
Yeah.
I always thought with relatively low output pickups, you could get some of the response out of an amp that you would get with a louder guitar without, so in other words, you turn the pedal on and leave it on to get the front end of the amp getting beat up a little more than it would be.
Yeah.
And you lose nothing from the guitar.
Yeah.
Like you in fact gain a little sparkle in the top, and you can use your volume knob a little more strategically because you're throwing the dynamic range into a broader spectrum that way.
Yeah. Well, I definitely appreciate this for that. I mean, I have a bias toward my Vertex boost as far as an output, but the RC booster to me still as a pre-gain, pre-overdrive section, the fact that you can get one of these for $85 to me is insane.
Yeah.
85 right here. And like everybody in Nashville for the longest time was using these things. I mean, they still do. Tom Bukovac, like the Nashville standard, was you'd put one of these before all of your overdrives, and then you'd take a Vertex boost and put that at the end of your drive. So you had something that you could kind of adjust the color of, how it was hitting the other pedals, whether you wanted to add more gain, and how much more gain you wanted to add, because you had your EQs and you had your gain and volume control, and then you had a really clean boost at the end of it. And I still think that this is like way underrated. Not a lot of people are using it. And even just the single foot switch one is great. And then I know that they had like the one that was the Scott Henderson one that became the new standard with, it has two switchable gains on it that, although I wonder oh, I see the other gain pot is this LED. Got it. Yeah. So I think that that's cool.
Yeah, and I do like the first version just fine of that.
Yeah, I'm totally cool with the first version for $80. It's kind of unbeatable for what it is. So that's another one I wanted to throw in there amongst the boost crowd.
Now, I'm not in any way sponsored or affiliated by Mason, but I will say, if you're rocking out and you just want to get louder, the Vertex Boost is the best.
I'm confident in saying that there's only one boost that I'm aware of on the market that I think has the specs in terms of its voltage swing that can compete with the cleanliness, irrespective of external conditions, which is the Creation Audio Labs MK 4.23.
Yeah, the name is already uninspiring. Let's buy that's Mason's pedal.
But it is good. I would say he's voiced it more for like a piezo type thing, like the input impedance thing is like 20 megs or something like that. But it's very linear. It doesn't have any color. It's just going to act like your amp turned up. It's going to unload your guitar a little bit, but some people definitely like that sound, and I think it's a good sounding one. Here's another one that you told me about. I remember I bought this at a Guitar Center along with a Seymour Duncan Tweak Fuzz when I was a kid. I bought this one right here, this pickup booster.
Yep, that's the one I have. That's the first version.
And I bought the Tweak. I think it was like the Tweak Fuzz or Tweaker Fuzz. It looked like this, but it was yellow. And
yeah, and it was bigger with more stuff on it.
Yeah, it was maybe a third wider than this. So tell us about this one. I remember I just didn't feel like it did enough. At that point I was really looking for like the type of effects that would make you feel like, you were Godzilla stepping on small cities, like you had all this power under your fingers that you could exercise. But what's the vibe of the pickup booster? I only remember through like the eyes of like a 16-year-old.
Right. Well, this one, you know, you'll notice a theme here where I pick things based on a purpose or a job that they have to do. This one would be a good choice if you actually want a couple different kinds of outputs from your guitar itself. I'll be more specific. So it has a pickup resonance switch, and I
Right.
don't know how that works, but
I see it up here at the top.
yeah, it needs to have the right impedance, kind of like a fuzz to be interactive. It has to go first.
Right.
I think some wizard like you could probably just adjust for that in a board so that it could be anywhere in line for it to work.
Right.
But what's cool about it is, without fundamentally changing the sound of the guitar, it kind of lowers the resonant peak of the
Right.
pickups. So I kind of like this one when I'm playing one of my Stratocasters in, there's position 0, which is just a clean boost that's not as good as yours. When you put it in position 1, it kind of just takes the thing and gives you a little low mid-range growl,
Right.
and maybe a shade off the top end.
Right.
And so it's almost like you can hit it and have that, think Clapton Strat boost, but a little bit more control. It's not as, I'm not crazy about the Clapton boost,
Right.
but but it does give you something of a humbuckery sound.
Right.
And then you get just that more exaggeratedly if you go down to the position 2.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's definitely worth me checking out again because it's been a long time. And I just remember like I was expecting, when you're new to guitar pedals and you buy them, you're looking for, I at least in my experience and in just having worked with people that are kind of on a lot of different journeys on kind of where they are with their gear acquiring, that they often start wanting pedals that really over exaggerate certain things, and then as they become more experienced, they want things that sort of do less in more fundamentally sparse sort of ways that do little tone shapings and don't do this really over the top effect. And so I think at the time I just wasn't able to appreciate the benefits of what a pedal like that would do. But again, this was early days. I mean, I remember at that time most pedals didn't even have true bypass, so it felt like such a cool thing. Because I remember reading, Mike Fuller's, discussion on true bypass and thinking, man, I need to do something like that, or like I need to get all my pedals
Dude,
like that.
he was so fanatical for,
Yeah,
he turned the whole industry, like he turned it all to true bypass.
he did. And then then there's been I think a bad resurgence to full buffers and stuff like that. But we can that's a conversation for another day. But here's another one actually I didn't know about, which was the Creepy Fingers Sugar Boost.
Oh yeah, that's one of, nobody knows about that.
Well, I mean,
And
somebody knows enough to charge $370 for it, but I wonder.
well,
Uh,
looks like the word got out, Mason.
Creepy, if I can type Creepy
The Sugar Boost.
Fingers Sugar Boost.
The word got out.
I have to compete with my all my XLR cables here. Looks like there's a few. Well, that one's the one we saw. I don't actually see a whole lot of them here, huh?
Yeah, maybe they don't make them anymore.
Maybe not. But
it's just one of the better sounding Rangemaster type pedals.
okay, got it. Yeah, I can see here they got the transistor. Wow.
And I don't know what it is. I don't know what makes it different from the others. I like all of them. Like, if you want one that sounds like super vintage, authentic, the Analog Man one is great. But when it comes to Rangemasters, everyone has their own little special flavor to it. And this one is just everything gnarly about the old style, super faithful recreation that you want, you're getting, but it's just a little more controllable for some reason.
This is kind of my pick for treble boosters. Is this company? Have you heard of them before? BSM?
Yeah, they've been around forever.
They have been around forever, and the cool thing about them is they really only make treble boosters. They have so many different variations of the treble booster. You can get like a Rory Gallagher one, and you can get, whatever tribute to the sound of David Gilmour and Mick Ronson, and they had like a Lindsey Buckingham one, and they had everybody, Richie Blackmore. But they actually are really great, and they sound really good. The knobs are on the side. So at first when I looked at them, I was like, well, how do you control this thing? But
Yeah.
these are actually really great, and a lot of people, here's like a Brian May kind of style one. They really have a lot of, if you go to their website, they have a bunch of different incarnations for pretty much like every feasible type of treble booster. But I think that they sound really good. I have one right now. I'm trying to see. I have the Model HS. I'm not sure which one that is, but it does sound really good and does nail that tone.
Yeah, I love treble boosters so much.
I don't have a lot of amps that are good with treble boosters. Very few of them work well.
Yeah, it's not your scene, dude.
Well, I have a Vox, an older AC30, and it works well with that, but this typically is not the sound I go for.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the sound.
Yeah.
So
The Fox thing is weird. Go ahead, what?
So let's move into distortion. Let's get into a little bit higher gain here.
Yeah, this is fun.
So you mentioned the Turbo Rat.
Yeah, the Turbo Rat.
Not the You Dirty Rat.
No, the Turbo. Do you know why I picked it?
Why did you pick the Turbo?
That is, how there's pedals that, we were talking about sleeper pedals.
Yeah.
There's pedals that just totally take off. The first two super ridiculous fuzz pedals to go up in value like crazy were the big, after the Fuzz Face and the obvious classics, was the Big Muff and the Super Fuzz. And what I saw was they started to climb up when knuckleheads like me that knew the Mudhoney album, Big Muff or Super Fuzz and Big Muff, that was the name of an album. Everybody was buying those up. It was the era of Dinosaur Jr. and it was Sonic Youth, and it was all the bands that my crew dug back in the day.
Right.
Well, the Turbo Rat is the Sonic Youth Rat. And if somebody's looking for a great, like if people are, because now there's kind of a 90s ret, the kind of throwback thing. And if you're chasing after some of those sounds, those plugged into a Marshall, kind of screaming away, feeding back like crazy.
Right.
The Turbo Rat's fantastic, and it has better. Don't be fooled by the turbo thing. There's nothing that more turbo about it than the other Rat, but it has a different chip.
Well, it looks like some of them, well, at least listed here, said they had the LM308, like this one.
Which is what they had in the old ones, right?
Right.
Yeah, so that's what I was trying to get to. I just didn't know the words. But when the original Rats, in the 90s, the Rats with the LED, they didn't really sound like a Rat enough.
Okay.
But the Turbo Rat did. And it has almost a little bit more of a fuzz. If you've ever heard people say, well, a Rat can almost do fuzz, and not know what they were talking about, the Turbo Rat, it becomes more obvious that you can do fuzz.
Right. Yeah, there's the LM308. How about that? But it's not the can style one. It's just a straight IC.
Yeah, and everything I'm saying was explained to me later. I'm going by ear.
No, this is cool. I mean, I think that certainly it's way less expensive than a vintage Rat.
Yeah, nobody wants it because it's aesthetically unpleasant.
Yeah, it's not quite as cool as the old Rat. That is cool.
No.
That is cool. I might have to pick one of those up too. Let's go to one of your other picks here, Uncle Tony. You have this one. Speaking of big muffs.
Oh yeah, this one. This is the sleeper to beat the band. This one will change your life.
Is this the actual one that you mean? This double muff?
No, there's a bigger one.
All right, let's see.
There's a big folded aluminum or folded steel or something.
Double muff. let's see if we can find another one here.
You'll find them. They're all over the place, all beat up.
This guy?
I can't see what you're. Yeah, that pedal right there is amazing.
Okay, so what's the thing that what it makes this unique from a standard Big Muff?
Well, a lot of people passed on these because obviously you're thinking it's two big muffs. It's like it's like, wait, my Big Muff is the most extreme weapon in my entire closet.
Right.
I sure don't need a double muff, you know. But it's more like half a muff. So the original Muff Fuzz or Muff, it was a different kind of effect than what people think of with the Big Muff.
Right.
So it was kind of like a small thing, almost like it would like plug into the amp, you know. It wasn't even a pedal. It was just this weird little device.
Right.
And this is two of those cascaded with a switch so that you can just have one or you can have two, but it's in a pedal form.
Right.
What's great about it is if you just have on one and not both of the fuzzes, it's like a fuzzy, thick, fat overdrive. If you think 70s Keith Richards in a pedal, it is that. It is this great, squishy, tweedy, nasty. If you were in a band and you were going to play Can't You Hear Me Rockin', and you're out there with your whatever amp, you know, this would be a great choice for that sound.
I'm intrigued.
They're great, dude. They're so good sounding.
$70, man. It's pretty unbeatable.
It's one of those pedals where I don't own one right now, but if I was in a used guitar shop and they had one of those display cases with all the beat up pedals in it, I always just kind of look, and that's one of the ones where if I see it, I might grab it.
Yeah, you know, a place locally where I've found those type of pedals a few times is at Starving Musician in Berkeley.
All the time. They have such great crap piled up.
Yeah, they have some weird vintage consignment stuff that comes in. The biggest regret that I ever have there, I'm sorry, it's starting to get real hot in here without the air conditioning. The biggest find there that I regret that I didn't get into, they had an original Jim Kelly head and 410 cab with the attenuator, and it was like $1,200 or $1,500 or something like this. This wasn't even that long ago. This was like 4 years ago or 3 years ago. It wasn't the Sir one, and I remember thinking like, oh yeah, and I got a 60s. You know, I had the Super Reverb that I bought from you, the 67. I don't really need. I got a Super Reverb, and you know, and then I thought about it overnight. I was like, you know what? I'll go back and get that. You know, and I went there, Scott.
Yeah, I hate when that happens. But I keep bumping it. If anyone hears a squeaky sound, it's 'cause I keep crashing into my table. It's really stupid.
All right, let's go to the next pick here. This is also in the distortion realm. So let's this one. All right, this is the one that you mentioned, the Brown Sound.
Oh, dude, these are so fantastic. So the Bennett Labs Brown Sound, and this came out right at the same time. I read about this in, here's a little fun history for you that you will enjoy. In 1996, the Klon Centaur became the Klon Centaur because Joe Gore wrote an article on great overdrives and some other stuff. And I believe it was him in either that same article or one that came out around the same time he reviewed this. And this later, I kept having an interest in this pedal because I kept hearing about it, that it sounded like a cool thing, but nobody was making them anymore or whatever. I mean, the guy, it's just one dude that makes it. But it's a copy of a circuit that's near and dear to my heart, which is the DeArmond Square Wave. The DeArmond Square Wave from Toledo, Ohio, my hometown again. And it's just another kind of ampy, distorty sound. But it's
brown face style Fender, or what's the brown sound, or just brown sound?
Well, brown sound used to be just a generic thing
Sure.
for, say, the Eddie
Yeah, yeah,
sound or something. But it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't sound like Eddie Van Halen or a brown Fender. It just sounds like I don't know what you'd call it. I will say this, if you do a search for Bennett Labs in Reverb, last I checked, he had an unpainted one that he hand built recently. And
yeah.
he even put a video with it so you could hear what it sounds like.
Let's see.
Because what's happening is Bennett, he's just in his basement like all the rest of us right now, screwing around.
Here it is, $99.
Yeah, that right there would be a monster deal for somebody.
Yeah, it looks pretty much the same internally from what I can see. I mean, there's not a lot going on the PC board.
Homeboy is literally putting them together in his basement, and he's like, "Yeah, if you want me to paint it or something, let me know." Like, it's the guy. And the other cool thing is he occasionally will put out meticulous things, like he'll build a clone or he'll build some cool old effect because he just happens to have the parts, and he'll just stick them on Reverb. So just kind of keep an eye out for Bennett Labs, because he's very intense about his quality.
Yeah, here I'm gonna follow this shop. And he's got a Stevie Ray Vaughan Strat for sale, just in case anybody's in the market. And some cables. Looks like maybe he has like a little retail thing he's doing here.
Well, I don't know the story, but I suspect that times are tough for you hand wiring pedal nerds.
Yeah. This is cool though. All right. Let's this is the last one that you put in the distortion category, and then we're gonna move on to wah.
Yeah.
All right. So here's the distortion category. I'm gonna skip the first one and kind of incorporate it into the second one, because I think that these last two are sort of go hand in hand, which is the DS2.
Yeah, the DS2.
So, knowing and being a fan of John Frusciante, this is certainly something that fans of his are aware of, that are guitar players. But first of all, in your mind, what do you think is the biggest distinction between a DS1 and a DS2?
Yeah, it's a good question, Mason. To me, it's a matter of how much is available on the dial. I think that you're either gonna plug into the DS1 or the DS2 if that's your distortion, especially if you're playing a Marshall.
Right.
And one or the other is going to be your one. And what I think is you can dial one in to sound quite like the other. It's just that one of them is going to be more friendly for you. I don't think many people use the extreme ends of the gain spectrum on these things.
How about the tone control? Because one of the challenges that a lot of people have cited on these is that, the tone control is almost unusable. And on this, that extra knob, it looks like it's just switching between what you have a remote, or there's two different versions of Turbo, one of which has a remote that you could trigger it from a rack or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's just not really something that gets used.
Yeah, I mean,
I could be wrong though. I could get hate mail for saying that.
Well, I have the Boss SD3 or SD2 that I'm looking at, that Tom Bukovac had used a lot, and it has that same remote input if you want to use it. But so if you were going to, so you're saying one of the two are going to work, just depending on your particular amp.
And I think just the way you like to deal with knobs and things. I think that you're going to end up. Most people seem to dial in a sound out of these things that sounds pretty much the same.
What would you say is like a classic John Frusciante sound that's clearly this to you?
To me, for the vast majority of Blood Sugar Sex Magic is that pedal.
Into the super bass or into what amp?
His rig on Blood Sugar Sex Magic was a stereo rig with a Silver Jubilee and a super bass. And he would split with the Boss CE1.
Yep.
He would use that in the video footage I've seen of them recording, he's got the DS1, so it could be that too.
Yeah.
But I hear, like, if you listen to Mellowship Slinky or whatever, or any of the distorted solo type stuff from the record, those riffs that are kind of honking horn, you know, bam, 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 ba-dum, bam, ba-bum, ba-da-ba-dum, bam, ba-bum, you know what I'm talking about?
I'm with you.
But all that stuff.
All right, now let's talk wahs. So first of all, we're gonna go with right here the Wilson 10 spot. You actually have one of these. Now this is a mini one.
Oh, get that off your screen. That's nobody wants to look at that.
But you know, it's kind of crazy. I mean, I presume he's buying the Dunlop ones, and then he's just implanting his own circuit in this. But nonetheless, I think it's way cool. And you know, let's just go to his website.
Yeah, I'm also holding mine in my hand.
Okay, Wilson Wah. We won't make him pay.
So while you're looking for it, this is that wah we were just, the John Frusciante wah is the WH10.
Yeah. Now I can see that they're and it's funny because there's a bunch of on all of his videos here. Danny California Can't Stop. They're all Red Hot Chili Pepper. But at $210 for this is actually a pretty good deal, I think, for the quality that Wilson brings to the table compared to, you know, what else is out there.
That's right. Now the original ones, the reason I like this wah is the WH10 was always my favorite wah, but like everyone, I didn't use them that much because they were plastic. So you had to be
one right
gentle.
Now, the original one is for sale at Guitar Center for $135.
Are you sure it's an original one?
I mean, the reissues are not out yet, correct?
No, they have 3 different versions of the reissue out.
Oh, they do have 3 different reissues.
They have tried this pedal.
This is V2. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they have tried to reissue this pedal, and V2 is metal. So the only ones that are plastic are the original ones from the 80s.
Okay, so
and
this one, that one's metal.
The reissues are metal.
Let's see if we can find a V1.
It's because I had one of these too, and I had Wilson modify it.
You had him modify your original, or you had him modify the reissue?
No, I've had originals, and I've had the V2 reissue modified by Wilson.
And how close does that get to the V1?
It's the exact.
Okay, so here's a V1 269.
Yeah, that would be a deal. That's a good buy for a wah, for that wah. If it's functional and you don't mind that it's plastic and you just want to have one.
Right.
Now, there are 2 different ones that were made in the 80s. There's the black with purple, and there's the gray with green.
Okay.
And the black with purple from the 80s, and the new one is like black with green. Like they keep doing it a little different, I think. But the original, the black and purple is just more of like a straight up wah. I don't know what I'm saying. They're both wahs, but it's the green one has a little extra boost to it.
Okay.
Not in a way that you would step on it and be like, oh, this wah has a boost.
Yeah, here's a purple version right here.
Yeah, but if you were to compare them side by side, you would find that the output on the gray and green is a little more extreme.
I wonder if it's just an output resistor change or something like that was in one and not the other.
Yeah, and ironically, my favorite one was a purple one. So
okay, well here you go, 269.
Yeah, and but the Wilson one is just in a completely bulletproof enclosure and just perfection, and he can do all kinds of things. Mine, I didn't even know it had this nor want it, but mine has one of those fuzz protection circuits or something, which I normally wouldn't ask for.
It has a buffer on the output side.
Yeah, but it's weird because I use it with an Octavia, and it doesn't. The Octavia doesn't mind.
Okay. Well, I
So
think
go figure.
the buffer's only on when you turn the pedal on.
Yeah, but I mean, it still sounds good when it, you know, you can get your machine gun on. Uh-oh, my phone battery is low.
All right, you want to plug it in?
Plug it in, plug it in.
Do you have one of those?
Yeah.
Do you have one of those adapters
Yeah,
that allows you to be on headphones and charge at the same time?
yeah, I can do that. But hold your horses. Entertain them while I go get it.
All right. Well, we're gonna go. I'll go through a few of my wah picks then while this is happening.
Yeah, and then I've got the big one. I'm gonna talk about your controversial wah. Hold on.
We'll talk about that too. But until then, let's go to a few of my picks. So another wah that I think is really great. I talked about it with Justin Derrico the other day. Is the Buddha wah, and in particular, they have a new one that looks like this. I can't vouch for that, although you definitely would have to be willing to go all in on that look, which I don't know if I have the to do. But this purple one here, this one is incredible. It was made by Dunlop, but Buddha was, I think, based out of a city called Petaluma, which is a little further east or west of where Dunlop is in Benicia. I think that they were just doing this OEM, but they sound really, really excellent. Paul Jackson Jr. was a big user of these. Justin Derrico still, yeah, it looks like right there, or San Rafael, it says there. So I wonder whether there's a point they moved from Petaluma. I think on the bottom of mine, I'm pretty sure it says Petaluma, California, which ironically is the same city where Mesa Boogie is. I should say maybe not ironically, but coincidentally is right where Mesa Boogie is. So that's a wah pick for me. Trying to think if there's any other ones I think are really, really great that are new.
Hey, I think I'm back.
You're back. All right.
Yeah, but I'm gonna have to like hold it.
Are you still rolling? Are you still rolling on your external audio?
Yeah, I never turned it off.
Okay, good. All right, let's the one that you wanted to talk about next, it was on your list, was the, let's see.
Wait, what about the Vertex?
Yeah, that's where I'm going to.
Oh, okay, cool.
I hope I shared the screen when I was doing the Buddha wah thing here.
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay,
I saw it.
Good. All right, so let's see about the Vertex Axis wah. Let's see if there's any on here. Yeah, there's one that, wow, he's asking $407 down to $319.
Homie, you're coming back, dude.
I don't know. I mean, so really, if you want to get exactly what this was, you could buy this version. I'm not sure why he's calling it a lawsuit model, because there was never any lawsuit.
Dude, you ripped them off so bad. Now they're suing the original people. Sorry, am I offensive? I'm only being funny.
No, anything that's coming my way was deserved by my choices. So it's
Hey,
to
let me say something to anyone that's listening to this about the wah already. Man, if you never screwed up when you were younger, like, and just come on, man, like, I'll drop it, but Jesus Christ, it's whatever. Anyway, I own one. I don't even know what I own, but I got mine dirt cheap after the whole thing happened.
Yeah.
So, but mine is a blackout wah, and it sounds kind of, you're gonna have to tell me what I have, because it sounds to me kind of like more like a king wah and less like a Clyde.
Yeah, so like the basic one that people know about is this Barkusberry pedal. And then the potentiometer was changed. So, they had some sort of Haas pot, and we would change that to a one that we were getting. I think for a time we were getting it from Small Bear, which is another electronics parts supplier, and then we found it the same one somewhere else, which is just kind of like more of a a typical vintage S taper, and it had a nice kind of backing on it. It was just a better quality pot than what came stock from them. The other thing we were doing to them on this was we were making sure that we matched the transistors to a certain gain. So some of them would come in, they'd be fine. They'd be in a range that sounded good, and it would work perfectly to kind of get the saturation that you wanted on the inductor to make it sound like a good vintage wah. But on some of them, like clearly they weren't sorted, you'd find them that are way different in range. And so, you know, we had kind of like a stock of, you know, a couple hundred at a time. In some batches, we'd have to change 10 out of 100. In some batches, you'd have to change 20 or 30 out of 100 to get them in that range. But as long as you did that, it sounded great. Now, out of the box, I would still say these sound really good by and large. So I think even if you just bought one, other than the aesthetics, which is the other thing we changed about them in the, you know, the Access wah, which was the controversial wah that you know kind of came to a head about 6 years ago for us.
So I'm totally interrupting. Sorry.
No.
But I know sometimes when you talk about the wah, things get really deep, and I just want to say that those sound great. Those BBE wahs sound great. If you can find one that's been made rugged by Mason and kind of just brought into spec a little, whatever the hell. I mean, look, a bunch of engineers speak. I get it. But the dang things sound amazing, and the Vertex one is indestructible, and you can buy it cheap, and the suckers sound dope. So that's that. And I don't know what the heck I have. You're gonna have to tell me.
I would say that typically that price is more expensive than what I usually see them go for. I usually see them go maybe around 150.
Come on, man. $150. They're so good.
But I know that a lot of guys still like it. Somebody had messaged me like a Pete Thorne like live Q&A, and he said that was still one of his favorites, you know. And so, you know, and Pete took a lot of heat when that stuff came to a head, because he had done kind of the video that really launched that product into popularity and sort of the gear mainstream. And so, you know, although he certainly didn't have any obligation, and certainly would probably would be able to avoid any possible confrontation with his followers, I was surprised that he still, you know, looked at it with some amount of reverence, at least for the sound. In terms of the marketing, you know, as I said, that was something that was sort of a very embarrassing and regrettable black eye on the company. And luckily that was something that we were able to resolve with everybody, at least financially, maybe not emotionally.
Oh God, you poor thing. You just fall right into it, man. You start laying it all out. I love it.
Well, you know, I think a lot of people are coming to the table, they don't know about any of this stuff. And so, you know, they're going to hear it from, you know, the gear page or other places where, you know, maybe there's going to be some fact, but there's going to be a lot of fiction in there too. And certainly the loudest voice reigns supreme on the gear page. There's no barometer for actuality. So.
Okay. Well, if anyone's in your mom's basement and you just want a good sounding wah, maybe stop reading and typing and go play some wahs and find out that the best one is still good.
And we gave you some alternatives there. For some reason, you know, the Access wah is not one you want to go experiment with.
So what the heck is this blackout wah?
So that one was one of the last things that we ever did, where that was ones that we were buying from Dunlop. And I don't think, I'm trying to remember how we got them from Dunlop. Because with Barkasberry, we just had like a rep there in-house that was selling them to us, and we told them what we were doing, you know, so it wasn't like a secret to them. They, you know, they invoiced us in our company name, all that stuff. The Dunlop ones, I don't remember how we got them. I don't think that they use reps. I think everything is internal there. So I don't know if we were just buying them from them, and we didn't buy a lot of them. I think we maybe bought, I don't know, 50 of them or something like that. And then we kind of just did the same sort of thing. We put the inductor, the Halo inductor that we were using, and, you know, and the ones that came from Barkasberry had their own Halo inductor, but Small Bear, that same parts company, sold separate inductors. So I think we bought those inductors. Again, this was like six plus years ago. I think we bought those inductors. We put those in there, And I think we changed the transistors, and we, you know, added an LED, and I'm trying to think what else we did.
Gosh, does it have an LED? I didn't even. Oh, on the side of it, right?
No, I think it's on the top. I think it's right above the foot switch.
Oh no, you're right. And it's like a bright white bluey
Yeah, it's the
thing,
white
right?
LED,
Yeah.
the same LED that was in the Barkusberry one, but the Barkusberry one came
Yeah.
with LED. And then I think we changed the foot switch because you needed to have a 3-pull double throw foot switch if you wanted the LED. Because I think the original one that they came with was like a Carling double pull double throw, and I think that was it. It was a few sort of minor optimizations to it, and we
Well,
did.
it sounds good. It sounds better than a Crybaby, a Dunlop.
We did say on that one, I think the reason why that one took less heat is I remember we said that it was modified off of a Crybaby platform, whereas the Barkusberry one, we didn't do that. We just released it as though it was just a Vertex product, like everything else that we'd made up until that time. Or if there was a mod, like on the Arion Mike Landau one, we would say this is a modified Arion, or this is a modified Boss FV500 for the volume pedal ones. But still, I think that it's if it sounds good, you know, go for it.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I brought it up like that, but I just
Okay.
it is a good if somebody was like, hey, where can I get a good wah pedal? Like, well, the guy that made the best, the best one that I heard got cleaned out, so you can get on bargain basement.
Yeah, it was funny. We had like a wall ready to go to replace it. Like that was going to come out maybe 3 or so months before all that happened, and it never just ended up coming out. But at some point, I mean, I still have everything done to that product, so eventually it will come out. The challenge with those though is the enclosures, because there's really only one shape. Unless Exotic kind of made their own. And Full Tone did their own out of a folded metal enclosure, but there's just an aesthetic to the Full Tone that even though it sounds really good, it just doesn't look like a vintage wah.
How about that Roger Mayer Vision wah?
Oh man, the one with the graphite look.
What's funny is I love the aesthetics of his pedals, and a lot of people don't. I love them. I think they're the best.
The spaceships.
Oh, I love them. Oh my god, I love them so much.
Yeah, they are cool. I think his Octave is cool, but every one that I've had, I've rehoused, except for the ones that are more traditional, like the Voodoo one and Voodoo Vibe and stuff like that.
Shoot, man. Just give me one of those rocket things. You can put a new circuit of anything you want in there, and I'll play it.
I might still have some of those die-cast shells for you.
Maybe hey, can I send you a pedal and you can put it in one of those?
Let me make sure I have it first, but yes.
Yeah.
You ready to move on to mod?
Oh God, there's more. Yeah, sorry. I thought we were. I thought we did.
We're still going strong.
Oh, okay. We'll go fast because you're sweating.
Yeah. Hold on just a second.
Well, I'll go really fast for these.
No, it's okay. I mean, I think we do what we do. Oh, let's see. The Catalinbread Harmonic
Mezmerizer. It's called like what the hell do they call this thing? Peridola or something?
All right, let's see. Well, I put in the harmonic, but I don't see the Mezmerizer.
Yeah. Try a God, dude, I don't even know. It's called a Peridola or something like that.
What is it? What's it?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's a harmonic mesmerizer.
Harmonic.
Maybe. How are you spelling mesmerizer?
I mean, I didn't try. I just tried harmonic. I figured if it was all.
Oh no, you gotta put in mesmerizer.
Okay.
Or just put Catalinbread and look for the one with the unpronounceable name.
I mean, I don't even see anything with an M that's coming up with them.
Well, no, just do Catalinbread.
Okay. Catalinbread.
Yeah, and then look for Peridola or It'll be some psychedelic looking thing. Mine, I have one that's kind of.
Oh, here it is.
There. Yeah. Okay. There it is. That green and
mod. This is it. Okay. So what's the word?
So this is, again, has a purpose. This one is the one, if you want that brown tremolo, that's the big brown. There's two different brown Fender tremolo sounds. There's the big ones that is almost a univibe. Okay. You could do a gig where this was your tremolo and your univibe. It's not really either one of those two things, but it's kind of both and kind of neither, and just kind of that swimmy, pulsy, phasey sounding, chewy modulation.
Yeah.
And it was so I've owned a brown Super and a couple of brown Fender Deluxes, and this was the one that would give me the Super tremolo sound. So the Fender Super has the harmonic, it's like a 2 or 3 tube tremolo system it has,
right,
and inside the amp. And that was the only reason I liked that particular amp. So I wanted to find a pedal, and this one I was able to get as close as possible to the Super using this versus any other outboard device.
Huh. That's cool. Very cool. All right, let's go to the next one that you had there. If you want the Super, the big brown sound, the big.
If you want that. You want that day after cabbage dinner sound. Have mama's boiled dinner with the cabbage and the ham. Get that brown sound.
Twisted. All right.
Hey, if you're talented, you can twist it.
It's funny, on Swamp Thing, it all came up with the speaker. Who made the Swamp Thing tremolo?
That is Monster Effects. Monster EFX or something. Wow. That looks like maybe someone built a clone of it.
Okay, let's look over here to our.
Dude, I was kind of feeling that though. Is the fez? You're never gonna do it without the fez on.
Oh, here it is. Looks like there's a couple. Oh, that's a double one. You have double Swamp Thing.
Hey, we don't need no dang double. Give me the single.
All right.
There she blows.
Yeah, I remember Oz Noy used to use these.
Did he now?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, well, that's why. It sounds great.
Yeah.
It sounds just like my brown Fender Deluxe.
Hmm.
The tremolo does.
I'm pretty sure that this one's analog.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of the tremolos subsequently that have come out. My favorite tremolo, don't laugh, but I'm telling you, man, these this is the tremolo for me. The Keeley TR2.
No, I'm not laughing at all. That's a good one.
Now it looks like they don't have any for sale currently. Actually, there's one in Korea. There's this one in Korea.
No, they're great. Why would you feel weird about that?
Well, I think some people, they see the Boss platform and they get freaked out. But this one is definitely the best. Tom Bukovac, longtime user of these, and man, they just sound so good. They sit really nicely in a band mix. I think that they sound the volume issue is addressed, because sometimes if you got the depth up too high, it would lose a lot of volume. So these are great. Usually they're not this expensive. I'd say usually I'm finding them in the $120 range typically. But man, the Keeley modded one, and I think Analog Man does a version of this as well, and so did Monty Allams, except they didn't use this concentric pot with the volume and the depth. They put the volume pot on the side. But these are great.
Have you seen what Tom does with his? He's got an extra trick with his.
Oh yeah, what's his?
I don't know. He's got some kind of like taking advantage of like almost like a latch feature, where he'll have a thing where he can step on it and Are you
sure that he's not using the WB2 for that?
Oh, I'm sure he's using that.
He's using that VB2 for the latch feature. You've seen him use the latch feature?
No. Just bear with me. It's not the actual latch feature, because that pedal doesn't have a latch feature.
No, it doesn't.
what I'm saying is he had Keeley set him up to where almost, and maybe I shouldn't have said latch feature, but it's something similar where when he steps on it, he can. It's almost like the pedal's always on, right? Because he's got got it in a loop or something,
Okay.
and he's got it set up where he has like, I guess it would be more like a momentary
Yeah,
feature.
momentary switch. Yeah.
But his turns it off, I think.
His
So in other words, if he's playing and he just wants one note to sing out and not have trem, he stands on it during that note and then he takes his foot off.
Got it. That's cool.
So that's pretty cool.
So let's go to the other modulation, which is along the same lines. The Wazacraft VB2 W. These are, I don't see any used ones on here, but maybe because they're so good, people don't get rid of them. I remember Michael Thompson the other day telling me that he compared them side by side, and he said that this was as good as the original.
He's right, man. People used to scrounge and dig for these things, man, back in the day.
I have an original one.
So you know.
Yeah, they're great.
They're so great. It's almost, a person might ask themselves, I don't know if I really need that. It's because you don't have one. They're so useful and fantastic. And the Waza sounds like the one that I used to dig in bins trying to find.
Right. Yeah, they're fantastic. And you have your you have some extra capabilities here that you didn't have on the original one. That's cool. And Michael Thompson had mentioned that it's also a lot quieter, which can be a plus with some of those older Bucket Brigade type pedals. Let's look at this is a cool one. I'm stoked on this one right here. This is another Boss one that the first person that I saw that hit me to it was John Shanks, actually.
Wow, John Shanks.
Yeah, John Shanks had one of these on a pedal board that I did for him, I don't know, close to 10 years ago.
I'm so glad you mentioned it.
Yeah, these are really cool. But man, they've certainly caught on.
Well, you know who popularized that pedal for me and my crew? That is the Tremolo, the stereo trem. You have a panning stereo trem that is panning between two amplifiers.
Right.
And that is a huge part of the My Bloody Valentine guitar rig.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
so,
210 is not terrible. Another interesting panning tremolo that Tom Bukovac used to use in some of the earlier rigs that I built for him was this Dunlop tremolo.
Yeah, that was my tremolo I used to use.
Yeah, this one, the TS or the TS1. This guy.
Yep.
Tom Bukovac used these $68. Holy smokes,
dude! That one, the big one, not the little wreck. There's a smaller one that MXR did.
Yeah, no.
You want that?
Yeah.
That one right there is an astoundingly good sounding pedal. But I only liked it in stereo. I didn't like it as just a regular old tremolo.
Yeah, well, it looks like I kind of forgot about this, but it looks like you actually have to use some sort of insert cable or something like that, or a TRS cable that splits in order to make it mono or something.
No, what you do is you have the left output. If you flip that, you can see there's a little gray push button.
Right.
So if you push that button, then the left out just becomes a mono out.
Got it. Yeah. Wow, what a deal.
Dude, if anybody's looking at that sucker will hold its own with that PN2.
Oh yeah, and I remember it's a really widespread, almost vertigo inducing.
Exactly that.
Vertigo inducing tone. All right, let's go to delays.
Oh my God, there's so many effects.
I think these are good. Anybody who's walking away with this is going to have some good suggestions on their hand. They want to get some killer deals. All right,
we're not telling you about dogs.
Your first suggestion was the Boss DD2. Wow, they've really gone up in price since I looked last. Oh no, some of these are better. The DD2 is the first digital delay. The,
It's what I have sitting on top of my amp here while we're in quarantine tone. That's my favorite for a slapback.
it's your favorite for the slapback.
Yeah, specifically for the slapback. And if you want these things to sound cool and get that kind of Brad Paisley slapback sound, or where these have like a tapey quality, because what happens is something about the circuit of these, the delayed signal feeds back through the same. It's hard to explain. It's not generating a new repeat for each repeat digitally. It's actually somehow sending that back through itself. I don't have engineer speak for it, but it sounds fantastic. And the one I have and the one I like, although it's not a big difference, is their actual first one. So the DD3 is the same circuit, but the DD2 has this gigantic white chip inside it that's as big as the inside of the pedal, and that one is my favorite.
Yeah, it was the same one that was in the SDE rack unit that a lot of people were into, and also, it's what you need if you want to get a Pete Cornish tape echo simulator. You have to take, you have to give him one of these pedals to harvest that chip from, because he kind of designed the tape echo simulator around, some properties of the DD2. Also, Eric Johnson uses these quite a bit.
It's amazing because I'll see people where they get their DD3 modded or something, and
right,
they want it to sound more like a tape echo, or they want a tone roll off. These really don't need it. Anyone who's ever played through a real tape echo knows that they're not that dark.
Yeah, I think a lot of the challenges that we see in terms of tape echo, or folks wanting to get tape echoes, most of them don't have a reference point, so they don't really know what it's supposed to sound like against their reference, and so they're like, oh, it sounds just like a tape echo, but their reference for tape echo is a plug-in or something like that, and so having real experience with EP2s, EP3s, EP1s, you can really get a sense of kind of what they do and what they don't. And I've said this a lot of times, if you want that sound, the closest I found is the Dunlop one. It's not the coolest, but it is the best sounding and the closest to that sound, if that's really what you want.
Yeah, and I agree with that. If you're looking for that, if you want one that sounds like a record that you like that has tape echo on it, the Bell Epoch by Catalinbread is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, it's good too.
But if you want something in your rig to stand in for an Echoplex, I agree the Dunlop one's pretty great.
Now, how about this one
is
here?
Oh yeah, what you got?
This is the Delta Labs.
Yeah, man, this is my freaking favorite. If you have a rack, or because you mentioned racks were coming back, I said I should give them a rack thing. Or if you have a studio, these things, the Delta Lab Effectron, and I think I always liked the Effectron 2, but it doesn't matter. So it's just a digital delay, but it sounds really just colorful. And it has the pitch control, so your delayed signal, you can put incredibly crazy pitch bend on it, up and down. And if you listen to, gosh, I feel weird because we keep coming back to the Chili Peppers, and I don't mean to do that. But when you hear Donnie California, because you mentioned that song, at the end where that, you can hear that the guitar, that bow no bow bow ba ba da ba da ba ba bow, whatever it is, it's doubled,
right?
And this is that. It's a short delay with a little bit of pitch shift, and the engineer actually used one of these for that.
That's cool.
But it's just really great for that, and it's one of the only digital delays that's really fun to play with the knobs in a mix down or something, and you can do all these crazy spaceshipy things, but it's a digital delay. It's not an analog delay. It's a strange device.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of those early digital delays were, have very analog qualities because they were so inefficient. And so you could kind of fake or analog by today's standards, although back then compared to a DM2, everything sounded more efficient than a Bucket Brigade, you know.
You know, on the old DL4 delay modeler,
Yeah, still
they
good.
have that low fidelity delay.
Yep.
Is kind of the Effectron isn't quite that low fidelity, but you can kind of tease it into some yucky.
Yeah.
And the DD2, a tip for people, if you're doing the slap thing, still put that mode setting in the longest delay. You want it set for the longest and the speed a little slower. And for some reason, you just get a much better tone that way.
Right, because it kind of has like a graduated groups of delay time that it does based on the selector. So I think the max one is like up to 800 milliseconds or something like that. Let's see.
If that, it's very short.
I used to have it on the shelf. I think it's in the other room. All right, so let's go to reverb. You only gave me one reverb suggestion, but I'm gonna have a few to add to the mix.
Well,
you suggested the Digiverb from Digitech.
Yeah, and I picked it because I knew yours would be different, and I know you like the hardwire reverb. Not to be a spoiler alert, but you've talked about it on other podcasts.
Yeah.
So same company, but the model previous to the hardwired is the Digiverb. And the reason I'm bringing it up is one specific reason. The spring setting on it is great. I've talked about how I'm like a crazy fan of the spring reverbs. Now, it's not going to be super authentic. What it is going to be is a pedal you can find for dirt cheap that has a better springy drip to it. If you're in like a surfier band and you're stuck and you need a pedal instead of a reverb tank,
right?
This will get you through the night. And you know, on a budget, this is great. You could set this by your amp and turn it on. And then, okay, so here's the secret of it that makes it an extra good bargain in these times where everyone's out of work and stuck in their house.
Okay.
Little known fact, if you hold down the switch on the Digiverb,
okay,
and you plug in your output into the jack, right? Like you plug into the output jack.
Okay.
With the pedal depressed, you engage a speaker simulator.
Huh.
And it's not great, but it's not bad if you were plugging into a little, you know, if you have a distortion pedal and you're having to plug into something direct without any emulation,
right?
It'll get you through the night.
Well, the one I was going to suggest is the Boss for spring. I still think that what RJ Ronquillo had turned me on to, which is the FRV1, is still king, but gosh, they're really not cheap anymore. Everybody's sort of found this out. And these sound incredible for spring, but for regular, sort of digital reverb, I think it's Polera, the Digitech Polera.
Well, that's a good pick.
Is a great deal. You can get these new for $130. Everybody's kind of, because to my knowledge, Digitech is not making any more pedals. They got bought out by Samsung. They're not doing pedals really. They're just selling their existing inventory. This has got all the Lexicon stuff in it. It sounds incredible. This is a great buy. The other one that I always talk about is the RV7 Reverb from Digitech Hardwire. And these are fantastic too. They're also way more pricey. I think that this and the Polera are very close in sound. So, you could get this and get a lot of those exact same tones. The only challenge is that if you're using them wet, dry, wet, I haven't gone through to figure out how to mod this to be 100% wet, but I can definitely tell you how to make the Hardwire Reverb 100% wet. And I'm sorry, Zeke is behind me. He found one of his dog toys and is kind of going nuts. So we're gonna have a little bit of squeaky dog toy here for the finale. But I think we went through everything. We did fuzz, drive, distortion, modulation, delay, reverb. I think we gave people at least 20 or 30 really legitimate picks that ranged all over the price range. And for the most part, I think we're well under $200, well below boutique prices, in some cases even under $100. So I think today was a job well done, Tony. We gave the people what they wanted. They got some good recommendations from Uncle Tony, and you know, I threw a few in there. So I deeply appreciate you taking us through, you giving us a good sort of overview of your picks. And this is always fun for me. I always get to learn new things. I'm going to go back and maybe buy a few of these when we get off this chat here now.
And if Corey Wong is listening, go get yourself a Gaiatone WR2 wah rocker and be done with your envelope filter madness.
Okay, so message to Corey Wong is the Gaiatone, what is it, WR2?
WR2 wah rocker.
Yeah,
it's everything he wants. It sounds unbelievable, and it's tiny, and he'll love it.
And it sounds like the Moog?
Yeah, you keep talking about the Moog. It sounds like a wah rocker, and it kills. Everything you keep asking about, I don't know about the Moog, man. I know about this
the reason
wah
why
rocker.
That's one of the ones that he references is the sound that he really likes.
Yeah, well, plug into this, Corey.
All right. Well, Tony, thank you again for spending the better part of an hour plus with me, and doing the. Can you see me, Tony? I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
See you. Okay.
I see you.
Cool. Yeah.
Can you see me?
I can. Yeah. Let me just stop.
Okay.
Here. Okay. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that, and thank you for kind of walking us through all your tips and tricks. I hope that it doesn't make it harder for you. You see, like Zeke back there, he's like all like prepped to go outside. He's like, I'm done with this. I'm ready to go out. But yeah, thanks for doing that, and thanks for giving us all some great suggestions. I'm melting away here without the air conditioning, so I'm gonna go.
Let's go turn on our air conditioning.
Turn that on, and then you'll have to take Zeke out for a WALK. I can't say the word because it's a trigger for him if I say it.
How pissed would you be if I said it? I'll just shout it out.
Can't hear you, so go for it.
Oh no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Uncle Tony.
Dude, it's always a treat. And say hi to your lovely lady that you never talk about on the show, obviously, but pat that dog and hug that girl.
All right. See you later.
See you, pal.